All right, what's going on, guys? It's your guy Joe Johnson, Mr. Vision Transition. Today we're going to be pumping down a line set. We're going to be recovering some refrigerant. So, with that being the case, there are two ways to recover refrigerant. One is with a recovery machine and a recovery tank. The other way is by actually pumping down the system, which is pumping the refrigerant out of the line set into the compressor or into the condenser unit, and we're going to hold the refrigerant in the system itself. That's a easy way to recover the refrigerant, especially if we're going to reuse the same refrigerant, right? So for the purpose of what we're doing today, we're going to be replacing the TXV. So rather than taking the refrigerant out of the line set and adding new refrigerant in, we're going to just pump the refrigerant down, and then once we're done with the process, we'll just release the refrigerant right back out of the system, right back into the line set. So again, we're going to be pumping the refrigerant down today. So let's get rocking and rolling. All right, now first step, number one thing, we're going to need a drill. This particular system, the screws are a 1/4 inch, so you're going to need a drill with a 1/4 inch chuck or 1/4 inch drill bit, whatever term you want to use. All right, so let's take off this panel first, and then we'll go from there. Okay, next thing we're going to do, we're going to connect our refrigerant gauges to the suction line and liquid line ports on the unit. Always remember, blue hose goes to the larger insulated line, which is the suction line. Red hose goes to the smaller line, which is the liquid line. All right. So to do that, you have to remove these caps off of the lines first. All right. I'm going to remove these. Removing the service port caps. Put those in a safe place. Turn our gauges on. Always want to make sure these are closed. Make sure your hoses are closed and tight. All right. Again, red hose goes to the liquid line. Okay, we got that. Now, we're going to remove these valve caps. These come right off the top of the suction line and liquid line. Remove these, put these in a safe place. Okay, now, this next step is really important. So, the idea of what we're doing is we're taking all of the refrigerant out of the line set, out of the indoor unit, and we're going to store it right in this outdoor unit. So to do that, we have to understand that the compressor, when it's engaged, when it's actually running, it's going to be pushing the refrigerant through the liquid line inside, and through the suction line, it'll be sucking the refrigerant back in, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by closing off the liquid line port. Okay, once we close off the liquid line port, then the compressor won't be able to push the refrigerant in anymore. It'll only be able to suck the refrigerant back into the outdoor unit, which is what we want. We want the condenser unit to suck, the compressor especially, to suck all the refrigerant back into the condenser unit. Then we'll close off the suction line as well, and that way all of the refrigerant will be trapped inside here. So we're going to start off. Our very next step is we're going to close off the liquid line port. We're going to do that first. To do that, I use my Allen wrenches. You can use a service wrench as well with a hex key. That'll work also. But for now, I'm going to just use Allen wrenches. First, we're going to close off the liquid line port with a pair of Allen wrenches. Literally, all I do is take this Allen wrench, stick it right in the top of the liquid line port, or the liquid line valve, I should say. Now that I have the liquid line valve closed completely, the next step is I'm going to force the compressor to start doing its job. So to do that, I'm going to engage the contactor myself. I'm going to push in a component called a contactor, and that will force the system to start running. What'll happen is we'll monitor the pressures on our gauges, right? The pressures are up here. As you can see, we have 166 and 166. So we have 166 on both sides, showing us that our pressures are stable right now. Once we start running the system, you will notice that these numbers will start to drop to zero, right? Once these numbers get all the way down to zero, we're going to close off the suction line. All right. First, I'm going to get prepared. I'm going to already have my Allen wrench inside of the suction line service valve, so I can be ready to close that thing off at a moment's notice. We have our suction line valve ready to go. Now, we're going to engage the contactor and watch those numbers drop. This component here is our contactor. Now, the part we're going to push in is this component here. We're going to push this part in, and once we push this piece in, it'll kick on the compressor, make this puppy start running, and we'll watch the numbers drop. One other thing to keep in mind is here is our power for our condenser unit. So you have to have the power on. This is called a disconnect. You have to have the power to the disconnect on for this to work. You see we have the power right here. This can easily come out and go back in. You gotta have power going to the condenser unit, and you have to know that the compressor has to be functional. If the compressor isn't functional, then this process won't work. All right. So we're gonna push this contactor in. Then we're gonna watch the pressure start to drop. All right, push the contactor in, then watch the pressures drop. Now, when I say we're going to watch the pressure numbers drop, I'm specifically referring to the amount of refrigerant measured in pounds per square inch of pressure inside of the line set and the system. Now, let's make sure we're clear on this point, because I don't want us to skip over this. So right now, we are measuring the amount of refrigerant in the system by the amount of pressure that's in the system. So if you were to call me and say, hey, man, I got a problem, and I'll ask you, well, okay, well, how much refrigerant do you have in the system? In this instance, you would say, well, I have 320 PSI. Understood. Now, our objective is to remove all of the refrigerant from the line set. So right now we have 320 PSI inside of the line set. So quite naturally, we want to get that down to 0. Once it gets down to 0, that'll let us know that there's no more refrigerant inside of the line set. Once we get down to 0 PSI, we'll close off the suction valve the same way we did the liquid line valve. We'll close off the suction line valve, and that will isolate the refrigerant from the line set, from the indoor unit. There'll be no refrigerant in that direction. All of the refrigerant will be trapped at the outdoor unit.